Welcome to Dr Joe Unplugged. The topics discussed in this podcast will reflect my opinions and are not in any way to be regarded as medical advice. A lot of quotes are attributed to Albert Einstein. We don't know whether each of them he actually said. There is one in particular at the moment that comes to mind, which again is attributed to him, that the definition of insanity is repeating the same actions on multiple times and expecting a different result or outcome. And we know that Thomas Edison reportedly said he'd found 10,000 ways that don't work before he found a way that worked and invented the electric light globe. He didn't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting it to work the 10,001st time. He approached it differently. The contrast between that approach and that of the Australian government when it comes to reducing smoking rates probably could not be any more stark. By any international assessment, Australia's policies on vaping and cigarettes are a failure. Now, again, you don't have to believe me. You can check out the data. We'll put a couple of links in the description. These are to the Australian newspaper, so they may well be paywalled. You can probably get the data elsewhere online. Topher Field, who also has his own website and YouTube page, did a very, very good analysis on this and said, look, you really couldn't have a worse situation than increased smoking rates, reduced taxation revenue, and a thriving criminal black market. A policy that ends up with those three outcomes is a failure. And doing more of the same is not going to make it any better. So the aim, and this has been an aim for 60 years, since it first emerged in the early 1960s, that smoking cigarettes was linked with a number of illnesses, lung cancer in particular, but a number of other cancers that's emerged. Heart disease, I won't list them all. Everybody knows this. Anybody who's not been living under a rock since the early 60s is aware that smoking cigarettes is not good for your health. People still do it. Not a great thing that they do it, and obviously anybody who does is advised to give up, and far less people in the world smoke today than did in years gone by. It varies from country to country. Some countries have very low smoking rates. Sweden in particular is ahead of the pack. New Zealand's doing very well also. There are countries where smoking rates are still quite prevalent, and that includes parts of Europe and parts of Asia and the subcontinent. Again, it's just where different countries are at. But Australia was in the last century, literally in the previous century, a world leader. It's like having won the premiership in a sporting competition in the 1980s. It's great. You haven't really won a premiership since. You can trade on past glories for a while, but eventually the novelty does wear off, and then the best you can do is get the premiership team of 1985 together and do a reunion, and as Bruce Springsteen would say, glory days. So over the last decade, taxation on cigarettes has increased very, very steeply to the point that Australia has the highest per-stick cigarette prices in the world. Now, there is a role for what is sometimes called sin taxes. Up the price, and there are people who are teetering on the brink of, do I give up, do I not give up? All right, it's become a bit too expensive, I'll quit. And quitting cigarettes is not always easy. Some people throw away the packet and away they go. Great for them. Great for them. Historically, over the years, that's probably been the way more people than any other single method have done. Why? Because up until more recent times, and I'm talking more recent times, probably the last 30 years, so half of the journey since the early 60s, that was the only way you could do it. There were no medications. Patches came in the 1990s, gums and sprays after that. Yeah, hypnosis was around, and most people don't do that. Yes, the quit line came up, but what are the quit line going to tell you? Quit smoking. Yeah, I already know that. Thanks very much. They probably do a little bit more than that. But ultimately, some people are able to do that, and most who can have done so. Other people can't, and they try a whole range of different methods to give up cigarette smoking, and there are lots of options. And yeah, as we said, that includes medications, they're on prescription, gums, sprays, patches, programs, and. After all that, there's still a percentage of people who either are not able to give up smoking or, rightly or wrongly, don't want to. And in that latter group, it's often because they do like nicotine. And nicotine per se is not the problem. Nicotine is not a dangerous drug. Could be an addictive drug, yes, but it's not a dangerous drug. People do not die of the consequences of use of nicotine other than through the delivery system. And that's why you can buy nicotine gums and patches, at the supermarket, even let alone the chemist. So what we've now got in Australia is stagnant smoking rates, and interestingly, the government, and this comes up from wastewater analysis, which the government now tries to cover up, because that's actual data on how much nicotine is in wastewater. We've got a thriving black market, and there have been 150 fire bombings, or maybe more than that. Massive, massive profits for organised crime. These policies have been the greatest gift to organised crime since prohibition of alcohol in America. And we know how that ended with a thriving business for the mafia. And the profit margin on illegal cigarettes is huge. So every so often there'll be a photo opportunity of the minister standing there. Oh yeah, we've had this seizure. It's barely a dent in supply. It certainly doesn't nudge the prices up. So people can buy cigarettes on the black market very easily for between a third and a half of what they'd pay for legal, if you like, cigarettes. Surprise, surprise. There is a point at which people say this is too expensive, yeah, and some of them will give up, but others will say, you know what, I'm going to need to make my own arrangements, and they do. Again, and we've spoken previously on the podcast a few times about vaping and how it is the world's most effective and popular quit smoking method, and in jurisdictions such as New Zealand and the UK and others, EU, USA, Canada, Japan, the list goes on, Scandinavia, their smoking rates are falling faster because, again, people have that option of going to a less harmful alternative, and most people want the nicotine. They don't necessarily want what goes with it, but if there is no other option, they will take it. So the winner is organised crime. This is the most, personally, in my opinion, one of the most bizarre statements that I've seen from a minister. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke declared, "We are not going to let organised crime dictate our health policy." Hey, Mimo, Tony Burke, they're not. They are the beneficiaries of your policy. They do not want you to change your policy. They are delighted with it. You have given them a massive free kick and gift. So they're not dictating policy to you. No, they are the beneficiaries, and it could be argued the only beneficiaries of your policy. They're not dictating anything. All they're doing is very politely asking you not to touch a thing. The people who are victims of fire bombings, and that has included a death, a minimum of one. That includes people who are forced to now go to the black market with all those issues. And for the people who are continuing to smoke and are denied easy access to the world's most popular and effective stop smoking method, which is vaping, yeah, they would like some changes in policy. They would like Australia to adopt a policy along the lines of New Zealand, where it is now harder to get a less harmful alternative than the more dangerous one. Most people would probably like policies where there is less criminal activity and where organised crime is not thriving, and people worry about whether a firebomb is going to go off somewhere near to them, and particularly for shop owners, either in potentially their shop, or more concerningly perhaps, it's concern for everybody, but if you're in the shop next door and you've got nothing at all to do with this illegal trade, nothing, and yet you suffer as a consequence of this. So, no, Mr. Burke, organised crime is not dictating your policies. Organised crime is benefiting enormously from your policies, and they would not want you to change it. So that is the most pathetic statement that I've seen, possibly from. Well, no, let me take that back. There's a lot of pathetic statements come out of ministers, but that's that's up there amongst them, because it totally misreads the situation, either willfully or just through ignorance. I don't know. I express no opinion on that. And where's the health minister in all of this? He's just crowing about how wonderful Australia's policies are. Maybe one day it wouldn't do him any harm to step outside the Canberra bubble and talk to people other than academics and big public health, and maybe just go out into some of the electorates and talk to people who are suffering as a consequence of these policies, and they're denied the opportunity to give up cigarettes in a simple way, and they're going to the black market to buy their cigarettes because they're not able to quit. And they don't want to pay sky-high prices, obviously, but they've got a workaround. And what's the approach from the government at this stage? Yeah, we're just going to do more of the same because, we are leading the world. Yeah, we're leading the world in failure. And no. Getting the premiership team of 1985 back together to celebrate long gone glory days with a bit of backslapping and aren't we wonderful and aren't we clever and isn't it so great and how good we are, not going to cut it. Not in the real world. Again, the solution is simple. Australia and New Zealand are reasonably close to each other. They're not identical, but they're reasonably close, similar backgrounds, similar cultures. People speak the same language. They've got it right. What does Australia need to do? Adopt the New Zealand model. Do I expect it to happen anytime soon? Look, I'd be delighted, but I'd also be surprised. We've got too much hubris, too much belief in that we will just keep repeating what has worked, what has not. Sorry, too much belief that we can repeat what clearly hasn't worked, but if we do it enough times, it'll work. Well, it didn't work for Edison, didn't work for Einstein. It's certainly not going to work for the Australian government. Thanks for listening to Dr. Joe Unplugged. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share, and consider subscribing. Tell your friends. If there are topics you'd like to see covered, be in touch through the chat or email info@drjoe.net.au. We'll be uploading new content each Monday, and soon we'll be putting these videos out on X. You can follow me there at Dr. Joe's DIY Health.